I just want you to know I'm also going live on our Facebook page. However, it's being a strange participant. So hello to you if you're watching on YouTube as well. So what I'm doing is talking about literally talking about how do I plan my strength training for 2021. Because here's the deal, we still got a few things going on, right? We've got still concerns about your immune system. If you're a woman over 50, you very likely have concerns about your hormones. And you may feel like, okay, I'm already through that. I don't have to worry about that. But we do. They're till death do us part. We suddenly started paying attention in, perimenopause for some of us, during menopause and post-menopause for others. And, that's what got our attention. No contest. That is something that was always there, but many of us didn't realize it and didn't realize what control over us it had. So for those of you that wanted, if you go to flipping50.com/strength training flips, and if you're watching on Facebook, that is there from a prior link. I put it in yesterday. I put it in this morning. So you can go there and grab it. And basically it's a handout, and I don't have a hard copy with me, or I'd show it to you. There's a handout for today, and there's one for tomorrow and one for the next day. So even if you don't have it today, you could go grab it right now. But I would make sure you do it for tomorrow and the next day, because it's going to be just a little bit more inclusive of details about you, your body type, your goals, your status. And we'll talk some more about, okay, how do I choose the weights that I need? How do I choose literally what it is that I need to be doing for weights, doing for the frequency of my workouts, not doing, because that would kind of totally flip me away from my goals. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But today is part one of 3 parts, and we're really going to get into it. And so if I'm not making eye contact, it is not avoiding you, but I'm literally going through the notes from the guide that I gave you, because I know that if you've got it in front of you, you want to fill in those blanks, right? You want to know exactly, okay, what is the answer to that? And you don't want to be left out, right? Have one blank and wonder, what was that, right? So you'll always be able to come back if you're watching later and you want to come back and go through these first things that I'm going to talk to you about. Number one, why am I dealing only with strength training and not talking about how to plan the whole thing? So previously in 2020, thank goodness we can very soon say that, right? Previously in 2020, a friend of mine said this just the other day, so I have to give credit where credit is due, that in just a few days, 2020 will be hindsight. So I cannot take credit for that, but if you let that sit in there for a minute, it is a little humorous. But what I want to let you know is back in April, when I did a short series and really a lengthy one-time workshop as well, I was really addressing all of our biggest key concerns were, okay, how do we stay active and fit and healthy? How do we not do too much, not do too little, but be in that sweet spot so that we can boost our immunity and not get too lethargic and too soft and too fluffy while we're at home? None of us at that point, this was April, none of us was thinking this is going to go on for 10 months or for a year potentially. And yet here we are. So now things are a little bit new. Why at the end of the year or the start to a new one, if you're watching in a few days from now, am I talking specifically about strength training? For women over 50, this is the game changer. And that means if you're 55, you're 60, you're 70, you're 80, my mom's 94. If I could get her to do one thing, that would support every mental and mood and energy and strength and bones and just help her sleep better, it would be strength training. I'm not going to tell my mom to go do intervals, right? But we also don't want to interval all day. We also don't want to be doing that endurance training all day. Do you need those things and do you need mobility? Absolutely. But the one thing that's going to change your game first, excuse me, morning voice, is your strength training, because strength training will empower the other things that you're doing. Strength training will empower actually more hormone balance, better mood, reducing anxiety. There are studies showing that. And it's also going to support more lean muscle, supports better body composition. That means AKA better metabolism and better bone density if done correctly. So everything I say, if you can just say, if it's done correctly, if it's done right. Hey, Instagram expert. Hey, I just want to tell you one thing, girl. So sorry about your puppy. I have a 13-year-old right down here, and I totally get that. So hugs to you virtually, okay? All right. So let's dive in. I'm starting. If you're following along and you already got the handout, and that's flipping50.com/strength training flips, no spaces between those words. And I said flips, not tips, because everything is flipping in my world. This is the first of your blank. So it's 10 reasons to literally strength train after 50. And I gave you a lot of reasons just now, but so that you write them down. And what I would have you do if you're writing these down on a legal pad or a Post-it note even, is write it down and then circle it. Is that relative to me? Do I want that perk? Because I think that's your motivation. I'm not going to motivate you. Nobody can give you that. But you find reasons why, okay, if I can connect the dots and doing this will get me this, and I know I want this, that's when your motivation starts to pick up. And when you start doing it, you shouldn't have to have this delayed gratification and not get it till later. So, I mean, we're over that, right? Immediate gratification, you should actually feel good while you're doing it. And if you're miserable and sore and fatigued and tired, that should be a hint for you that there is not this land of Oz over here waiting for you if you're miserable doing it. Isn't that right? That's kind of like, okay, wake up a minute. Some of us have been exercising with some insanity, right? Miserable, hating it, not loving it, thinking, but I'll get through this and then it's going to be wonderful. And that's crazy. That would be like not loving your first date with somebody, just hating, not looking forward to any dates or time that you were spending with somebody, and then saying, but when we get married, it will be better, right? Crazy? Okay, so now you know. All right, top 10 reasons. I'm not going to read this off Letterman style, although I have a couple things coming up in the next few days with popular podcasts in 2020 that I will. All right, so we're just going to go in no particular order of importance. But number one is improving those symptoms of anxiety and depression. And potentially, as I was making this list, that came to my mind first because 2020. Do I need to say any more? And women who go through menopause, and I'm talking, in your late 30s, even early 40s, women start going through perimenopause, and it becomes a little bit more of a roller coaster ride. And some of us have a smoother ride than others, but most of us can appreciate some suspension, along the way if we're going through that hormonal change. And women are more susceptible to anxiety and depression later in their life. So like 2/3 as much more likely than men to have problems with anxiety and depression. So that's not planting a seed and hopefully raining on your parade today. But also say this, if we're not doing the right things to overcome it, eating right, sleeping well, or trying to, prioritizing it, and exercising correctly. If you're doing those things, you can offset. If you like what you're doing all day, you're going to get up in the morning looking forward to it, and you're probably going to sleep better at night. All those things happen. So number one, improving symptoms of anxiety and depression. Strength training in particular. Any exercise will do it, But there have been more and more studies recently, and specifically with postmenopausal women. So everything I take, please realize that the research that I use at Flipping 50 is about you. It's a small fraction of all the research that is out there for exercise and sports medicine. That's less than 10%, but it's 100% of what we use here. So this is kind of your home to filter out, is that for me? Does that matter for me? So start asking. I'll give you that questioning later. That is your gold for how do I know this will work for me? So number one, anxiety and depression relief, improving symptoms. If you've got it, preventing it if you don't. And on the flip side of that, if you suffer, we're talking to you. But if you don't, it's a mood booster on the positive side of things. Number two is reducing arthritis pain. Again, no particular order. And I want to say this, both types of arthritis pain. So you know who you are if you're here and you have rheumatoid arthritis. So RA, you potentially could have had that when you were young. It was more related to genetics. And, we can do a whole lot with our lifestyle changes, what we call epigenetics, what you do with your environment, your habits, your eating, your sleeping, your exercise. But you can't always outrun that genetic pool. So if you didn't pick your parents really wisely, you may have a tendency toward more things that you've got to overcome. But here's the deal. So with RA or osteoarthritis, and that means you and I have had a really good life. Maybe we loved running. Running doesn't necessarily cause osteoarthritis or doesn't have to, but in some of us, the way that, say, your knees are put together may be slightly different, like this, as opposed to this, where the tracking is better. And we can't determine that. From birth, you kind of get what you get. And there are ways that we can strengthen certain muscles that support the knees, even at the hip. But it's how you are put together and the activities that you've done that will result in osteoarthritis. If you've had trauma, so fewer of us probably were football players, but if you've got hit and or you were in a car accident or you had a severe fall or injury, those places where you were injured are more likely to be the site of joint issue and osteoarthritis. So just know that. But if here's your knee and you're feeling knee pain significantly, if we strengthen the muscles up here, down and below those joints that are particularly touchy and sensitive, we take the strain and the stress off of that joint itself. So it's learning how to exercise for arthritis. Number three, increases your lean muscle tissue. Praise the Lord, amen, right? So that results in improving your body composition, because if we have more lean tissue, we have less percent body fat and boost your metabolism. So here's the difference between strength training and cardio exercise, whether we're talking HIIT, high intensity interval training. And I know we've all been taught and conditioned that that's the gold standard for burning fat, but it's only the gold standard for the moments that you're in it and maybe for a couple of hours afterward, right? Because we should be doing short workouts and we can elevate our heart rate and elevate our metabolism. And doing that several times a week at most is good and reduces our risk of injury. If we do more, we get in trouble. But strength training is the gift that just keeps giving. You're changing your body composition permanently. What does that mean? That means that at the end of the year, if you are strength training, you have a higher metabolism. If you're doing high intensity interval training, you have a higher metabolism for a few hours and or repeatedly for several hours, several times of the week. But it's like, I liken it to cocaine or crack. You have to get another hit in order to get that going again. If you've changed your body composition, you have more muscle than fat. You are sitting here as I am sitting. Maybe you're standing, maybe you're walking, and you're burning more calories at rest even. That's a pretty good ROI. I like that one, right? So we want to be doing that. And number 4, blood sugar control. It's said that if we aren't diabetic, and this is at least in the United States, okay? It's said that if we aren't diabetic, we're pre-diabetic. And hopefully we've all learned a little bit more about how to eat appropriately and eat specially this year. So we're reducing our sugars, we're reducing potentially the alcohol, but we know that not to be true for a lot of people that were seeking comfort food. And this year could have been a bit of a nightmare, or at least for the beginning of it. I've heard from many of our Flipping 50 members that started out really poorly and gained 10 pounds or 15 on top of maybe menopause weight, and realized I need to get after this. I got to have a plan. And a woman in our community started strength training with me, and she's lost 30 pounds. She first gained 10 and then lost 30. So that's a net balance of 20 pounds. But with strength training, guess what? You're smaller. Potentially you're wearing a size smaller because of it. So weight is not weight. Is it fat weight or is it muscle weight? You want to be sure you get really specific, right? Okay, blood sugar control. Your muscle takes up blood sugar. So the more muscle you have and the more exercise you're doing, stimulating that muscle, the more stable your blood sugar all day. So you don't have those mood up and down roller coaster of all day. You're stable. And that will, by the way, help you sleep a little bit better. Number 5 is enhanced fat burning all day, every day, and your body composition. And I really kind of harped on that one when I talked about increasing your lean tissue. So this one is as a result of increasing that amount of lean body tissue. So those of you who got a smart scale for Christmas, and if you didn't, go get yourself one. Best gift ever. And right now, while we're in the pandemic, and you may be not going to the gym either because you can't or you're choosing not to, one of the smartest things you have is that smart scale will tell you, I don't have to take her advice, meaning me, or anybody else's. I'm going to watch what effect my habits are having on my body. Is my muscle going up, down, or staying the same? Is my fat going up, down, or staying the same? It is the best feedback ever. So literally, it is fitness motivation. It is your best exercise coach. And then very quickly, so month to month, week to week, it's probably best to see over time because your body can fluctuate a little bit. We hold water weight in our muscles. That may change a bit. But when you look at, here's the beginning of January, here's the beginning of February, here's the beginning, and maybe you go halfway as well, you will see a trend and you can look back and say, okay, what am I going to tweak? I need to change my exercise. I need to change my diet. I need to prioritize my sleep. All of those things may support you. So number 6 is preventing bone density losses. Now, notice how I stated that, right? I didn't say increasing your bone density because really that's a somewhat of a false truth. We kind of, that ship sailed a little bit, right? So that ship sailed when we were 30. Up until that point, we can put more bone density on. We can pack it in, and then at some point that shuts off. So if you've got young kids or you've got grandchildren, depending on how old you are, or you've got apparently healthy young women, get them jumping rope, get them playing sports like even gymnastics, better than swimming when we're talking about bone density. And there have been studies done long ago proving that like adolescents who did gymnastics versus those who swam and didn't do other higher impact kinds of exercise had greater bone density going into their adulthood. So it's like, how much can you put in there? So when we were 30, we kind of had this bank account and bone density begins to come out a little bit every year, anywhere between 1% and 3%. And that's probably a little aggressive. Some studies will say maybe 0.5 to 1 or 2% comes out every year. But here's the place where it starts not to matter. If you, like me, as long as I'm feeling good, I'm going for triple digits. From 30 to 100 is 70 years of losing bone density. Are you doing math? Let's just say it's 1%, so we don't have to do math, hard math. 70% of your bone density lost would be a bad thing, right? Just means that you're going to be more prone to fractures. So we better be keeping those muscles strong so that you don't fall in the first place. And we want to start working on that bone density. So the thing to remember in regard to, okay, we lose bone density with age. That's a natural part of the process, unless we're lifting weights properly to offset it. And I'll talk more about what is that as we go into tomorrow. And we're talking specifically about what are your goals, your highest priorities, and what's the match for the exercise protocol. Okay. So number 7 is improve elimination. All right. So I know nobody wants to talk about it, but seriously, having started flipping 50 7 years ago, and I've worked with midlife women for, as of Friday, that'll be my 37th years, literally. I worked with them, but you don't necessarily talk about that, right? Until you do. So in my 40s and 50s, I started talking about it more and more. And what I found is people coming into flipping 50, women coming in, probably over 50% of them have struggles with constipation. And some of them, both constipation and diarrhea. So if that's you, you're not alone. Part of that is hormone changes. Part of that is stress. Part of that is our eating habits. And so many things can make your gut imbalanced that you're just not eliminating correctly or adequately. So strength training. So we get those external muscles going, your internal muscles also work better. All right. Number 9, the 9th reason, top reason for strength training after 50 is reducing lower back pain occurrence and the frequency and the intensity that it happens, if it happens. So here's the statistic. I created a back pain prevention course back in 2013, and I've been somewhat of a back pain prevention expert and core expert since I was 26. I did not sign up to get in that program and learn all that. I was thrown off a horse onto a pile of wood. So as a almost grad student, I was going into 3 months later, my first semester of graduate work, and I was going to be a grad assistant who taught 6 fitness classes a week in addition to some other things. And I thought, okay, there goes my stipend. There goes my a potential way of reducing my tuition. And what am I going to do? Is my career hanging in the limbs? And after about 3.5 months, I learned everything I needed to learn about, number 1, how to recover and rehab, which also is somewhat how to prehab. So it doesn't happen to you. Excluding mistakes like getting on a horse you have no business being on, and or getting in an accident. Some things are not preventable, but you can be assured that 80% of US citizens anyway have back pain at some point in their lives. 80% of those people have it recurring throughout the year. They just almost expect that, oh, I threw my back out. That's a common thing for you to say. And if that's you, it doesn't have to be that way. So when you start lifting weights, a lot of times your back pain reduces if you do have it. Your intensity, yes, but also the frequency of those occurrences changes. We often, if you have back problems, you'll go right for core exercise or for stretching your lower back. But often picking up a weight causes you to brace, which is really what you're after. Bracing causes more of a flat belly, but also more functional strength in your core that protects your lower back. It's like your personal girdle, one of the best things that you can do. And number 10, super simple, but don't we all want it? More energy. Without 5-hour energy, which has negative side effects, but more energy throughout the day. And, if you could bottle that up and save it, what does more energy do for you? I'm sure you've got your own list of things that you wish that you had more energy to do, but it also makes you more productive. Whatever is on that to-do list, you get through it faster, and don't be tempted to add more things to it. That's a whole nother problem. But you have then more free time to enjoy life, maybe to read a book, maybe to do other things or not do anything, which I hope you're doing a little bit of this week. But there you have it. So really quickly, I'm going to read through all those again. All right. So number one, improve symptoms of anxiety and depression or avoid them, prevent them. Number two is reducing arthritis pain by strengthening muscles around the joints. Number three is increasing your lean muscle tissue and avoiding muscle loss that will happen with aging if you're not offsetting it. And you lose muscle, you lose metabolism, but you also become more prone for falling. Now, at whatever age you're watching this, you may feel like, I'm not worried about falling, but you will be. And now is that best time to plant a tree, right? So if you want to reap the rewards when you're 70s and 80s and 90s, it's now that what you do matters every single day. So blood sugar control, so you've got more energy stable throughout the day. You don't go through that roller coaster dips. Enhancing your fat burning all day, every day, not just the day or the minutes that you're in that strength training, but hours afterward. And then you're changing your metabolism permanently. Preventing bone density losses. And there is this little opportunity to gain. So many of the people who've gone through the Flipping 50 program will come back and report, I either stay the same, which means you prevented the 1 to 3% losses, or I gained 1%. And that often will happen more if you're taking a supplement. So not going to go into what are safe supplements right now, but want you to know that that's true. Improving elimination and improving your posture, reducing lower back pain, either occurrence or the frequency or the intensity that it happens, and hopefully all of the above. And last but not least, just overall more energy. That feeling that you can do things. All right, there we go. Okay, so I want to address, so this is like your top 10 strategies only. This is your top 6, and I'm going to give you a bonus. What are the biggest mistakes that women are making, especially women over 50, and maybe trainers who are working with them who are not astute to, what do I need to do when you're over 50? What do I need to pay attention to? What are the mistakes you're making that are either causing you not to have the results that you want or increasing your risk of injury, and or both, okay? So if you don't see results, you're likely not going to be motivated to stick with it. So if that's true, that could be due to one of these mistakes as well. Number one mistake, perfect time of year to be having this discussion. Repeat after me, too much, too soon. Like, we're saying, I want results yesterday, right? Yesterday is yesterday. A quote that came literally from a private client that I worked with, and I've used it ever since. So best quote of all is, we want results yesterday's yesterday. But if you jump in and you do too much too soon, here's what I call like January 1st syndrome. Like, we decide suddenly we're going to boot camp, and maybe we're not going to boot camp. We're doing boot camp on our cell phone, or we're suddenly going to do Peloton 6 days a week. And last week and the week before that and the week before that and the week before that, we didn't do anything. That's a problem. Because even though this is ready for more results like yesterday's yesterday, that this is like, my joints have to adapt. That soft connective tissue around the joint needs to adapt. The muscles need to adapt. So if you are so sore you can't sit down, I know at some point in your life you thought that was a great workout. It's not so true. That means there's a lot of micro tearing of the muscle, maybe more than enough. We have a little every workout, no matter what you're doing. But if you have so much, you've done more breakdown, and that muscle is going to take a long, long time to build back up. So it could take as long even as 84 days. One study took a lot of different people and said, okay, we're going to have you do the same exercise. And what we want to see is, how many days does it take you to recover? And the range was anywhere from 4 to 84 days. 84 days, because it was that tough. And it's so individual and unique. So what is too much too soon for you will vary. And you don't want to compare yourself to anybody else. So here's the deal. If you're going to compete with your sister or your best girlfriend on Peloton and workouts, and she's saying, I'm doing it today, are you doing it today? And you're not recovered, you're not going to get more fit. In fact, you may hurt your fitness level by doing it too much too soon. So you've got to know, how much rest and recovery do I need? When is my heart rate back down to the point where it should be when I wake up in the morning? When is my energy level back up? When is my sleep optimal? I'm not too tired to sleep or so exhausted that all I want to do is sleep. And your appetite is stable. It shouldn't be greater if you're doing the right kind of exercise. It should be just improved. Like, yeah, I have a healthy appetite for food, but I'm not craving things all the time. That's a good sign. Some of those are very related to your recovery. So know that too much too soon is the number one mistake, especially this time of year. And if you are somebody who could say, you're not saying it to me yet, but you could say, I always get started, I'm off to a great start, and then I get hurt. Hello. Too much too soon. So what you have is data. So we've all done it. I promise you, I've done it. But what you have is data. You know that this is my likelihood of doing it. And you're always better to just stop a little before you think you could have done more. If you walk away from the end of that workout thinking, I think I could have done a little bit more, you know you're not going to get hurt. And you can always play with that. So learn that one. Mistake number 2 is thinking that you can't lift. You can't strength train because you have a joint issue or you have a prior injury. So I want to clarify that, and I'll go right back to the arthritis being one of the top 10 reasons why you should. And that's not the only reason that somebody might say, well, I have a joint issue. You might have something else going on, fibromyalgia, or you've got a knee issue or a hip issue. But strength training should be taken on a joint by joint basis. We want to do functional movement and incorporate your whole body. And a nod to you over there in Chicago. I see you. And yet you want to make sure that, just because your shoulder, you're having an issue with that, there are other exercises that you can do. There are other things that you can do to help put yourself into alignment or keep you there while you're struggling with that injury, right? So if your shoulder, you're struggling with an injury, sometimes, much more so if it's your hip or your knees, will start to compensate elsewhere. And so doing some things that strength training wise, maybe they're, maybe they're lighter in weight that you're doing. So it's about the goal that changes, and or you're protecting a joint, staying away from it, but strengthening the joint above or below it to help your alignment. Okay. Sorry about that morning voice. Okay. Next up, mistake number 3 is not recovering enough between sessions. So I'm really harping on this one, right? So, if I'm beating that dead horse, there's some reason to it. So that goes hand in hand with that too much too soon, right? Because sometimes too much too soon isn't, this is too much, but it's okay. If you're going to do this, then you need to rest and rest and rest and recover before you do it again. And that can be the problem. So here's what I want you to know. Repeat after me. You are not delicate because you're over 50. You don't have to ask this question like, I'm over 50, I'm over 60. What should I do? Because that doesn't actually mean anything to me. Sometimes it's not a smart thing, but sometimes we'll do endurance events. Ironman Triathlon, that when I go to those, I have friends who are 75 years old still doing them. No limits. And just in case those of you that don't know it, don't even think you want to know it, an Ironman Triathlon is swimming 2.4 miles, riding 112 miles on your bike, and then doing a marathon, 26.2 miles in the same day, okay? And that's, what some people think is that's a normal day. That is fun for me. Now, that's not a recommendation. For hormone imbalance, that's probably a ticket, one-way ticket right there. And I can testify to that. But here's the thing. Your age is not the determiner of what you can do. Your history might be. History of injuries or a special condition, getting your body into proper alignment and having proper technique at the way you do things, all of those things definitely key, but we need to recover adequately between sessions. So when you and I started to exercise potentially back in our 20s and our 30s, this is back in the 80s, depending, but we typically were going to classes based on the class schedule, right? Do you remember that? We're looking at the schedule. Now you look at it online and you still are a little bit of a victim because it's just built for the convenience of the club and the schedule. And it's not necessarily what you need. So really you need to say on my calendar, what do I need? And then see what matches that I can go to and what should I skip? Because 72 hours is the new 48 hours. So we used to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? And that's only 48 hours between workouts. There are quite a few studies that will show for adults over 40 and definitely over 50, the extension of our need for recovery. Just you right now has more recovery need or a longer recovery period required than younger you did. 10 or 20 years ago, you could have gotten by with maybe getting right back to it. And it's not I'm getting old. It's just, okay, yeah, your tissues, your muscles, your ligaments are getting a little bit older. And they're fine. They will be resilient as long as you give them the opportunity to be resilient. So 72 hours means Monday and Thursday as opposed to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that means less exercise, right? So you can't necessarily fit in 3 workouts every week if you do it that way, because the next time you'd be able to exercise after Thursday would be Sunday, which means you can't do it again Monday. So you can either do that, exercise every 72 hours, if you have the ability to rotate your schedule like that, or just say Monday and Thursday every week. Those are my days, Monday and Thursday. So know that if you're not getting adequate recovery, your muscles are breaking down. We call that a catabolic situation. Exercise is a breakdown activity. And if you are in perimenopause or menopause or post, your estrogen levels have gone down that help you maintain your lean muscles. So there's more breakdown already happening. That also means cortisol is up. So as estrogen comes down, cortisol goes like this. It tries to compensate, to do estrogen's job. It does it really badly, but it tries. And then we still have this stress hormone that causes more breakdown of muscle. So if you add any kind of bad habits to that, like maybe you like a lot of caffeine, or you're kind of putting yourself into the fire regularly, worrying about things, all of that causes more muscle breakdown. And we've got to be really careful about doing that. So lots of recovery, really important. Mistake number 4 is not reaching muscular fatigue when you're strength training. So let me explain muscular fatigue. And it is really what I'm kind of wanting to define for you is the difference between being tired at the end of a session and having reached muscular fatigue within every set of exercises. Say you're doing a set of 15 repetitions. That should be challenging pretty much all the way through. But by the time you're squeezing out the 13th and the 14th and the 15th, you should be saying, absolutely, this is the last one. I'm going to need a break, because either you're not able to go through full range of motion, or you start feeling like, oh, you know what, I'm cheating. And this is not supposed to be engaged, but I just can't do it without cheating, or you're starting to swing. So muscular fatigue means you've given your muscle enough stimulus. So we call that breakdown. And so you get enough stimulus in those recovery days that you're taking so that you build back up. But if your muscle started like this strong You'll be breaking it down while you exercise, but then in the recovery period, it doesn't just come to here. It's going to come to here. It's going to say, okay, the next time that attack happens, I've got to be stronger. And that's why you used to use 10 pounds and now you have to have 12 or 15 to have that same training effect. And it feels light when you pick up 10 pounds. And that's, you've done enough recovery and you gave it enough stimulus during the workout that you have the best combination of both worlds. So that's what increases your metabolism when you get that recovery that is really up here. So too many days in a row of strength training and or just really hard workouts will sabotage you. So next up is mistake number 5 is lifting too quickly, going too fast. So that really lends itself to what I just addressed. So not reaching muscular fatigue, but say you're getting tired. You walk out of the room or maybe it's your living room these days, right? It's not a boot camp. And you say, that was a really good workout because I am just wiped. I'm just tired. And I know we like to feel that's good tired, right? Versus exhausted, maybe from sitting at a desk all day. But what you want to be sure of is that you're not using momentum, and that if you're moving quickly from one exercise to the next exercise, the key is do the moving quickly between exercises quickly. Do the exercise with focus and control and concentration so that you reach muscular fatigue safely without getting hurt. So it's okay, I'm going to go from here to here. Here's my next exercise. Move quickly, get there, slow down, and do it with control. So too fast is really just momentum. And honestly, that then may not reach your muscle, but it will do damage for your joints. So in a motion, there's always acceleration and deceleration. You have to get there, and then you have to stop. And that acceleration and deceleration is where you're stressing the joints. So you want to take care of them, right? Because you can't, well, I guess you can these days. You can renew anything, but it's a whole lot less painful just to keep your own, the original version in shape. All right, mistake number 6 is lifting with poor technique. And here's the get out of jail card I want to give you. You don't necessarily know you're doing it. You're not intentionally setting out to lift with poor fatigue. Nobody would do that, of course. But if something hurts for you while you're doing it, if it feels awkward for you while you're doing it, or it hurts you afterward, potentially there was some poor technique going on. What I've learned from creating just a library of how-to videos in the Flipping 50 membership is that some of the ways that instructions are given really make a huge difference to you being able to do it successfully, pain-free, when you thought, I can't do lunges, as a for instance, or I can't do squats because they hurt my knees. It's often, where are you weight bearing? What's the position of your back? And what little reminders that you need along the way. And some of our members here potentially will tell you that I give cues over and over. You'll hear them from me again because I know after 37 years, what are the most common mistakes? My goal is always to give them to you before you know to ask, before you tell me that bothers my knees. I can almost see it. If I could watch you, I could see that's going to hurt your knees, or does that hurt your knees? And often you and I, if we're really motivated, really disciplined, we won't ask. We will say, I've just got to get through this. And you've been conditioned to get this no pain, no gain kind of input. So not true. All right. So we can do this pain-free and still get results. In fact, most likely get better results and sustain them. All right. So lifting with poor technique and thinking I can't do something, it's not just what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. And for every exercise that you really truly can't. There may be some. If you have, say, just bone on bone, your cartilage is gone. Every time you do this is going to be, upsetting your nerves. So fewer lunges and fewer squats for you would make sense, but there is an exercise that you can do and still use your lower body and stimulate that metabolism without the stress on those joints. And that's what you're looking for, is if I can't do this, then I can do this. And you've always got to go to. So you're doing your workout, you're not doing somebody else's workout, right? Okay. So next, what I want to give you here is, how do we fix those, right? So I've talked a little bit about that, but I want to give you a bonus. And that is mistake 7. You're following protocols, exercise protocols that are not designed for you. So many of you may have already you've seen my TED Talk. So it's posted everywhere. It's in YouTube. It's on Instagram. It's on my website, flipping50.com/TEDx, just the TEDx. And I've talked about it in here. I'm talking about it all over the place. So only 39% of all sports medicine and exercise research features female subjects. So the rest features males or mice or younger women. Now you may look and think, okay, that's not that bad. That's 39% versus 61%. That's 40 to 60. It's not terrible. And I might tend to say, okay, well, I agree with you. But when you think that you and I and females go through up to 7 different hormone changes in our lives, some women go through more because they go through some of them repeatedly. They have 4 or 5 children, so they've gone through that prenatal, postnatal period multiple times. Or not every woman either chooses or is blessed to go through all the stages. But let's say on average, we go through 7 major changes. Every one of those hormonal changes in our lives demands that we have a specific exercise protocol, because there's different things we should be focusing on. When we're the adolescent, remember I talked gymnastics as opposed to swimming. We want to build as much bone density as possible. And you want to build confidence in those kids so that they love activity and they're rewarded for it, and the feel-good feelings that come from it. That's kind of the focus then. But I would never say that same thing to either a woman who is prenatal or just postnatal, because we don't want them doing high impact right then, or to a woman who is, say, postmenopausal, right? And prenatal, your needs are very different than a woman who's in menopause. So you see where I'm going with this. The workout is very different. Now, take that 39% of all that research and divide it into 7. That's less than 10%. In fact, I think it's like 5.6%. Terrible at math, but I think I got that one memorized. Less than 10% of all research. So let's say you didn't know to ask up until this point, until 2020, you never said to your trainer, to your fitness instructor, to the creator of that DVD program that you bought, or the subscription on that membership site that you got, is that exercise based on women just like me? Is that based going to work on me because females just like me were the subjects? And if it wasn't, we have been gambling, but who knew? So when I gave my TEDx talk, it was almost banned. And in part, it was backed by a dozen studies. So they couldn't tell me that, but it was not popular, right? So even for somebody who'd been an educator in kinesiology at a university, I'd been doing it wrong. I'd been telling, students who were then going to be going out and being trainers and fitness coaches that, here are the guidelines. Here's how we want, people to determine their fitness level. And this is what we want them to do. We were doing that, all of us. Really, now we've been doing it for, a little over 37 years, probably, I was not new on when fitness started to emerge. It was probably 40 or 45 years is really where we began to do this on purpose. But we've been giving people the same recommendations for such a very long time, and it's misleading. So it's treating us as if, the guidelines for you should do 3 to 5 cardio workouts, you should do 2 to 3 strength training workouts, or you should do 150 minutes of moderate activity or do 75 of vigorous activity. That assumes that your hormones and your body composition and your metabolism is just like everybody else's. And that is so not true. Even if everyone here watching is a woman who's at some stage of menopause, even we are not alike. No two of us are just exactly alike, having the same ride through menopause as the next person. So it's really important that you realize, I've got to ask, number one, is this based on women just like me, who are in menopause, who are in this stage of menopause like me? And then look at what are your own specific needs. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow, is look specifically at what are your top priorities? And I will list the ones that are key for you. So you may not have thought about them, but want to. And then I will talk a little bit about body type and how much weight you actually lift based on what's the best protocol or the best practice for you based on your goals. So that's what it's all about tomorrow. You can go get that handout if you want it. That's at flipping50.com/strength training flips, FLIPS. And it's no spaces between those. And I have a staff meeting in a little over 6 minutes, but I'll answer questions until then if you've got them. So I'm going to scroll through first over here, and just a lot of hellos. But if you have a question, please feel free to pop them into. Amy asked, what about number 8? I think I added that when I went back through the recap, Amy. So let me know if you did not get that. I jumped from 7 to 9. I can open that up again. Let me know if you all got that. Sue, thank you for doing everybody's homework. It was improving posture. And I didn't dwell on that. Even as I went through the summary, I was like, wait a minute, did I talk about that? Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much. Okay. Shirley's got a question. If dealing with an injury, how do I find out how to ease into workouts again, or what different workout can be done while recovering from an injury? Great question. So you would look at, first of all, where is the injury? Is there a way to exercise around it? So I know one of our community members has got an issue. So Cindy, shout out to you if you're watching, and if you're watching later. And there's a shoulder issue, and I believe there's also a foot issue. So that really causes some issues, right? So I normally would have said, if you've got a shoulder issue, let's make sure that you're still using that lower body and doing any low impact kind of exercise, or you're doing lower impact so you don't shake this up, right? Because even running might hurt a tough shoulder. And you can do strength training with your lower body. But if you've got a foot issue, that's going to potentially putting weight on the foot and or cause you to be off balance. And we don't want to do that either. So limited, a little bit more limited on things that you can do. So you've got to look at where is the issue. So if it's your lower body, you're going to avoid things that are going to make you or require that you would put weight on that lower body. I mean, put additional weight, and that would not be a good thing. So if you're exercising something or wondering, when can I start exercising that pain point? My rule of thumb with clients, myself, my athletes, students, has always been 2 weeks pain-free. 2 weeks pain-free. So those of you who've got, say an ankle roll, or you've got a knee issue or a hip problem that was more acute, you actually felt it, and you're trying to get back and start again, 2 weeks pain-free. So what can you do? Meanwhile, you can almost always do core, depends again on the injury, where that is. Pilates, you're on the floor, you're turning over. So that's a non-weight bearing kind of thing. And that can help keep you into alignment while you're doing it. Getting into the water, I know that's a little bit more tricky right now because during COVID, you may not have access to a swimming pool. For others of us, it's actually an easier thing to have access to and be able to move freely. But it totally depends on where you are. And I'm talking either head above and you're upright doing an aerobic kind of movement, or walking, jogging in the pool, or swimming, either one. You don't have to be a swimmer to use the water. Getting on a bike is another kind of non-weight bearing activity that can be really helpful if you're recovering, if you've got access to a stationary bike or your bike on what's called a trainer. So you're just putting that back wheel in it, clip to go. Those are about, there's a range probably of $200 to $300. You can go all the way up to $1,200 if you want to go fancy. But that's probably one of the most economical ways to add a piece of cardio, quote unquote, equipment to your home. So hopefully that answers your question. Yvonne says, are you saying we should do strength training 2 times a week, like on Monday and Thursday, recovery in between? Absolutely. Yes. Kathy, can you do exercise that don't use weight, such as push-ups, more than twice a week, every day? Good question. So what you're doing, the difference there is true strength versus muscular endurance. But if you're doing these back to back, potentially, you're just breaking down those muscles again and again and again. So I would strategically place them, and you don't want to do strength training one day and then do push-ups the next, because again, they're same muscle group. You're trying to allow that muscle group to recover. So, and congratulations to you. I would love to talk to you, girl. Literally, we need to get you on a podcast. Margie says, if I'm only exercising 2 days to get the 72 hours of rest, are you referring to weight training or cardio? Weight training primarily. So, and really all I'm addressing here is weight training. We've got to, at some point, probably talk, how do we incorporate the interval training? But interval training is also muscular breakdown. So you may want to be careful about, doing Monday and Friday interval training, just because that also, depending on what you're doing. Now, if you're swimming, less breakdown. If you're rowing, less breakdown. But if you're running, if you're doing jumping jacks, more breakdown. So it really matters how you're doing your intervals. Okay, everybody, I have to go. I am the team leader, and we're jumping off so that I can jump onto a Skype with my team. And I will be back tomorrow at same time, same place, and definitely on Facebook. So if you're watching somewhere else and you don't find me popping on Instagram or on YouTube, head over to Facebook, and that's where you'll see the handout as well. So thanks so much for joining me. I would love you to share this or make a comment as I pop off here. If this was helpful, I would love to know it. All right. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody. Enjoy the last few days of this, shall we just call it a year? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, guys.
doing much double writing sense. And so carrying out this notebook that you actually write in the thing, and you can wipe off your writing, but you can scan the page and it stores your notes as you've written them, and then also digitizes them and stores them wherever you want, Google Drive or wherever. So it's something like 10 pages that you find your clean and start, and then stores your pages very digitally. So yeah, very interesting. Nice. Yeah.
Hey guys. Losing my voice. I just did out loud. Losing my voice on that too. How was everybody? What day is it?
I don't know. It's sometime in 2020. Meanwhile, 2020.
This is cool. All right, tons of things. I'm getting bit up by women in Facebook. So, we need to clarify the message for that picture.
But it does not yet have the part you were supposed to.
We got to get it in now.
Okay.
Yeah. Why we didn't do that?
Other projects. Just haven't happened. It's on the list.
Okay, well, it's crucial and they are freaking. So, yeah, we need that done. So I really, on the 20th, we send out those reminders. Those should be available. Just so that, we can post the free thing. And now they're like, I have to do that too. And where can I find it? It's not in there. And everybody understands this. Oh, I don't have to do that for a living.
Gotcha. No, it's not yet done for it. So, I would.
When could we expect it? Because I'm going to go tell them right now.
Yeah, you can totally play it out. Exactly. What's that? So we have to replicate, Thursday would be guaranteed. I will work to get it in there sooner than that. Yeah, that's funny. It's actually on the to be done by today list. It's actually in our calendar for today, but I'll just look at it here, make sure it's done Thursday night. I'll just focus tomorrow. Was there did we have any that are facing verbiage stating that to expect a form to be held up for the
No, but by now, they shouldn't, they should have gone through orders from the perfect. So whatever.
Yeah.
And then not create. But yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious to know. I'm seeing you say, hey, like, do we need this on, XYZ for I'm just curious.
No, so for 6 months, it's definitely not people participating in the staff on how they did.
Yeah, and when we first launched it, I didn't understand that it was the African RQ, and the last time we did it, I think it was when this came up. So it's been slated in calendar years, it doesn't happen. So I would get that done ASAP.
Thank you.
Yeah, very soon then, yeah. Budget. Agenda. Cool. All right, good deal. So you're going to just run through this list of things?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so customer service complaints 2 weeks ago, this respond from cafe members about what? That's customer service complaints 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What days respond?
Yeah, well, Nick and I have been talking about that. So they're saying that they requested access to LinkedIn. And in general, what they're saying is that they haven't been getting responses from customer support. So I don't know if you're,
Because the two people that you mentioned,
Yeah.
Don and Bart, I looked in the past and I didn't see anything designated request for them to get the ads listed. On this for like future type requests, because I know that initial limited access notification email from you to support that tells me, hey, double check that. This is their 1 year anniversary, and to get that, can we configure an email like send like that to trigger for those that reach their renewal, like for the future? Instead of
It's on and then it trigger based on that.
correct.
Instead of that,
Yeah, just so that there's just it's automated that there's no confusion.
yeah.
And
So
yeah,
here's why we can't, as I understood it, because Jonathan, you and I talked about this. This is not for every renewal. This is for people who are starting. Well, and now it would be okay, wouldn't it?
yeah, because I know June next year, or July next year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then,
I probably said where, I don't know exactly where we could do that, but we could probably figure it out when they renew the cafe, billing around certification stuff. We just have to figure out how to, when that auto renews for the first time, and they would just be tagged as selected. But then we would also need to tag them into premium. It's hard because we're reassigning those pre-queue, RQ, not completed tags based on each 3-month program. So they would have access to the page, but they still would need to complete the pre-queue, RQ. It's doable. I'm not sure at the moment off the top of my head where that, do you know where when they, so there's a current payments dashboard, where is that?
because I know that there's that initial sign up form. I guess my initial question then, if thinking out loud is, I'm just renewed as of today for my second year. How do I get notified or get told about for it? Is it an email that's sent out? Or I guess how does that? How do I
Go to the cafe and on the cafe page, I'll be in, let's go. When you are on you only see it really from exercise videos and workouts, and then you see lifted unlock your anniversary yet. So this is how
So everybody sees that.
a little bit jumbled because of that initial setup, but I think that we can start catching up with those that are coming up on their anniversary. Hopefully closer, so that it's like, hey, that's this thing. There wasn't really a request. I guess just for that as anything. But yeah, I think that what's happening is that essentially I touch on those that have issued requests and why and they haven't reached their anniversary yet.
Because they filled out the form already,
Yeah.
or people get checking. So when they fill out the form again, it's not coming to you because they filled out their form too early. It's not coming because the form is duplicate checking. So they have to create a duplicate contact for them.
Oh, got it. Okay. I got it.
So Anthony's not getting that email because they filled it out too early.
I got it. That helps. I will.
And request, I'm sure they will be comes.
No, because it's in the account that duplicate checking thing. So they should have just emailed support directly as opposed to trying to fill out the form. Cool. And how many of those are there?
It was just those two.
Those were the two having a conversation. There's probably 6 in that conversation that are doing it right now. I requested them not getting an answer.
Email support directly.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, just email support directly, not issue the next because you filled out that form before you were able to. I wouldn't say that way, of course.
Yeah.
Hey, if you weren't doing things incorrectly, would have a problem.
Okay. Those do not correct instructions anywhere, so they don't know.
So, yeah, I would just message them and say, hey, send an email to support directly, don't fill out the form, be sure to fill out the form once, it's preventing your form from being resubmitted, even though it looks like it's minutes. So, just email support directly and they'll get you access right away. For anybody who has that complaint.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it would be possible to, well, I kind of already said that, but it would be possible to have that notification on the because that's the groups that are going to be really up until July next summer.
Right, I mean, they still should go with the form, right?
Yeah, it could be on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and something to keep in mind is if they submit this form before their date, then we should probably look them up and set a calendar reminder to go ahead and add it when it's appropriate to add it based on their renewal date, automatically without emailing back in. And then email them to say, hey, congratulations, your date is over out. We added you in. And that would just be a way to fix that going forward as well. If somebody does submit it before their date, would be then to set a calendar reminder to reach out to them or to give them access on their calendar renewal date. Since they requested it early, give it to them on the right date and then just email them to let them know they've been tagged for it.
Okay. But I'm also thinking too, if for the, because I'm sure this will probably happen for the phone app prior to their renewal. Is there a way that you, it sounds complicated, it's like a campaign, but essentially tag those people that have reached their anniversary yet, so that they're just for, it just,
Yeah, no, it's not complicated. I think that it was a way in the recurring payments dashboard, which I could find out. I don't remember exactly what that is in the Microsoft, but if we can go in the recurring payments dashboard, I'll just make a note of that. To automate tagging so that you don't have to manually do it. And it's based on a successful renewal, not based on anything other than that. Would be a way to do it. So let's task here, automate. New giving cafe members renewal tag
specifically monthly and fixed characters, which slash I don't think we already have this set up, but how would you like to have a automated email sent to you with the customer's information, advising you, hey, this person canceled, remove Facebook access.
Yeah.
Is that, this person canceled the cafe?
Or, yeah, so, okay, so would you want to have that specifically just for cafe? Or,
Subscriptions wise, that's all.
oh, okay, so
There-
I'll listen to it.
Yeah, so, I mean, most people too that I know about, so, they have group. So, yeah, that would be great. And that saves you from, yeah, but could there be anybody in that canceled on the monthly that you didn't approve? Because I don't know if there's any access to that.
Well, I'm gonna go back.
Okay.
And then still also all you know, protects you, Facebook access removed. But yeah, so, I'll try to set up some motivation with that. It's the time that allows you to access Facebook access for either monthly or cancel subscription.
Sweet, okay, that's great.
Cool. And then, I have a question in regards to the days off cafe, coupon. How long is it going though? Because I noticed that when I looked at that specific coupon, it says that it expires December 1st.
On December 1st,
And I have people are saying, hey, I'm trying to do this coupon, and it says that it's expired.
I didn't change that there, did you change that?
no. That would explain why there's been no sales. No, so we should not have to, like, break and, extend it for, that would explain it in the middle of having. What do you got?
Alright, so I'm just gonna set this for the 10th of January. I mean, I would even put an expiration date in here, but, because we'll kill their ability to purchase the cafe products.
Okay.
So the coupon won't matter,
Okay.
so,
So,
no expiration date.
so Anthony, can you find who asked that? Say, yes, please buy now.
I was just wanting to confirm with you guys prior to responding to them. I assume that, this coupon should have ended. We might have kept it on the page, but it wasn't, Cool, so then I'll reach out to them just to have it paid. There was a technical glitch, go ahead and reattach with that coupon to purchase.
Great.
That doesn't matter.
I thought it did too. I was gonna say the same.
So, I would buy it, purchase for $80 off, annual membership. Cool. Good deal, so that coupon will auto apply, and, yeah, that's it. Let's just double check that now, make sure that it is restricted only to the annual product, because it is 1941 product, so good to go. All right, yeah, so that should work now. Cool.
One of those people. And I, also noticed too, inside the, also the minutes course, I'm getting a message when I attempt to purchase the companion book.
Okay. That has been problematic, to fill that out. it so that it's not in an action set. Okay, so fix goals, and that's upsell, cross it for once and for all. Here we go. I'll just put that here. Okay. Same deal.
And I think the last thing I had, and that's not on the list, but, Deborah, I know that we're promoting Stronger 3 as a separate standalone product for taking care. So that are we no longer gonna be doing the, standalone Stronger 1 as a purchase for
Correct. So we'll pull one of any of them out because they're created. So this time, for the first time, things like 2.5 years ago, I used Stronger 3 instead of Stronger 1. So most people who are getting this, they might get picked up Stronger 1. Be more inclined to then come in and do Stronger 3 again because it's different. It's not what it does. It's not really repeating. But nobody really would know. I mean, they don't know that it's a Stronger 1 or Stronger 3. It's just a 12-week program. Have you had questions specific to?
Well, the reason I ask is because I've had a few people that had initially purchased Stronger 1 in October, but were unable to participate to the medical leave program, things like that. And I know that, we've pushed their, participation into like the next session. So,
And they can do that. They can do it. And it would be actually probably more appropriate for them to do 3 anyway. Because if they had a green they took off, it just coincidentally worked out well for them too.
cool, okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, for my explanation of why I did that. But just wanted to reverse so they don't know the difference, because this is their first Stronger, so cool. I'll just make sure I get that into the Stronger 3.
Got it, thank you.
So you just tap in for access and then put it into make their creation part here.
Yeah, I have some accurate tasks for those that I need to push to anywhere, so yeah, I'm going to drop them to forms.
So yeah, if you just tap it into Stronger 3, we have an access tag, or you just tag it in fulfillment. But if you just tag it in fulfillment, it should see possible for getting creation parking and all of those emails that come in. So you should just be able to tag them in using the purchase tag. This is flow down or fill. That's cafe tag access. You can just use access to Stronger 3. January 2021.
Okay, cool.
And then they'll get all of the appropriation costs and everything for it.
Awesome.
Cool. Appropriation also goes through tax, et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna go. I'll just use it. Cool. All right. Cool. Anything cleaner sales going forward? Are all orders being picked up? I don't know what that means, but Kevin is not logging into the website and downloading orders. What's happening is we are going in, checking orders. If there are orders for the planner, we are moving them to the spreadsheet. They grab them from the spreadsheet, and then when they ship them, they put tracking numbers back on the spreadsheet. Then we take those tracking numbers and put them back into the cart for tracking, and then switch it to complete it and send it to the customer. They use a very old version of USPS shipping. And there are no integration options for it, not with Zephyr or anything else that would be highly custom. Probably 5 to 10 hours of code. So right now, that is just an manual process of checking your cart for any plan orders. If there are plan orders, we add it to the sheet. They're checking the sheet 3 times a week. And then they add a tracking back to that sheet. And Connie goes in and takes those tracking numbers back to the cart.
That's
So it's very manual.
that's our personal solution.
That is, right.
I mean, our permanent solution, that's what we have.
That's what we have.
Oh my God. He's so real. I was shit.
They don't have an integration option whatsoever. They hand it beyond to the third party outsourced IT people, which isn't even like card people. They hand it me to like the people that come and install their computers and network their office and all of that. So yeah, they don't have any sort of integration.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up with him on
If they will accept, I don't know how their other customers accept orders, or how they accept orders from their other customers, but we could just send them an email with that order, but you would still end up manually checking to make sure that they received that order when you email it to them. So it shortcuts it to just add it to the sheet, because they would still have to go from an email, add it to the sheet, and then have a tracking number to it. One follow-up I have, I've never done this, but I am familiar with the way you can use Zapier to send an email through Zapier using mail parser, and you can parse the email and send it to a Google Sheet. So that would cut down one step on our side. I just haven't done it, but I can connect with Positive. I'm sure it's something Positive will do in a very short amount of time.
like,
Yes, currently that is the solution.
yeah, well, I'm emailing that is not as per his promise, and he went back that he fully recognized I did not want to use resources of Google to do this. So essentially, every item costs me more than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a manual process right now. I mean, the part I think we can eliminate if we build it is getting the orders from WooCommerce into the sheet. Okay.
I actually have something I've heard shipping stuff.
Once you guys were like, yeah, I mean, I know what version of USPS shipping they're using. And when I was on the phone with them, we Googled around, both of us, for about 10 to 15 minutes, and neither of us had anything. So, yeah.
So I had a customer reach out to support and mentioned that for whatever reasons, her planner got mailed to her billing address and not the shipping address that we have via the spreadsheet. Which is confusing. I'm not sure how that happened. She provided a couple screenshots.
So she actually gave us the shipping address and they shipped it to the billing address instead.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not sure how that happened.
yeah, well, it's manual entry. That's the reason. You know, human sort of down just for the stuff of 150 orders, you'll have at least one error. Just happens. So, yeah, what, do you have the clarification say she was going to be able to pick it up from the billing address?
It's 2 different states. So, yeah. So she is in California through the month of January, which is where she wanted to ship to, but it shipped to her other address. In Montana.
I would forward that to Kevin and say, hey, looks like you guys shipped the bill instead of the shipping address. You want to just send another one to the billing address? Or to the shipping address? Here's the shipping address. And just see if they'll take care of it.
They will take care of it, but it'll be my cost, but it will be my cost.
They won't eat that time.
Well, you know, ways to
You might
take it off.
CC down and see if they're in talks into taking care of that, see if they're
Okay. Yeah.
it's just bound to happen when you've got a whole bunch of order processing and moving manually, and it's not our system connected to their system, but it's our system connected to a spreadsheet connected to their person adding it to their system. And there's just too many steps and too much potential for something like that auction process.
Okay. And in regards to shipping, I know we had mentioned, we went over it last Monday in regards to shipping internationally. What was the designated, so this is the question specifically for Canada, what was the designated shipping price for those having with minor that are based out of Canada?
It's on one planner, it's no cost. It's on 4 planners, I will tell you.
13 something.
Okay, so then if someone had ordered, if someone was trying to ship when they ordered one, they should be refunded, correct?
No,
No, okay.
well, like somebody from Canada.
Yes.
Possible we didn't find that, refund. Who was that?
And for that, I thought she was charged $27-ish.
Oh, God.
It was,
Yeah, I think,
but it was a Belknap, it's
Yeah, that's the one.
she's
I
been,
didn't
she's the one who wanted it. Lit is a problem for her, she wants me to take screenshots of the notebook, because she's out of time. Let me see. Yeah, let me count the ways down, it's up fast. We should refund.
one plan for the 2 shipping, and with the 4-pack, we're splitting the cost of it for $13.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I think you can ask your questions on all of this. And got back to you. So I'm gonna finish that, is that correct?
I don't think this one got resolved. There was this one that was on, and I remember her. And it's unfortunate that she also happens to be a problem child. 2790, really don't pay out. It wasn't paid out, so it was refunded right here. You get a refund this one? Deborah?
Yeah.
Great. So. Should not have been charged shipping. 27, PayPal. Cheapers, 27.90, she must be somewhere, right? And that's how she's probably way out there somewhere. Or like delivering it to her on a seaplane or something. $27. Cool. Alright, so she's been refunded 27. Cool. Yeah. Alright, cool. 2021 schedule for masterclass, Catholic masterclass is posted. Did that schedule get put into a task? So January 2021 Catholic masterclass masterclass, you asked about the calendar. The calendar had gotten added for 2021 schedule. Where is that schedule? Okay, cool. So, calculating masterclass year 2021. That strong person. Would it be in this test? Let's do that one. General masterclass. In here, chance to good, yes, but calculate masterclass and very custom schedule. I don't. This is. General Masterclass, January 2021, Capping Masterclass. Agenda, we can look at this week's agenda too and see what's in here. This is old. This one, it's not in this task. Go there. Projects, let's go projects. Go here, and we'll go.
Well, it's right there at the top of the to-do list. Halfway through and start. Sorry. That's what I say. There it is.
So it's like.
That is. It's in there. So, see if you can those other.
Attendee link in the calendar.
Look at the to-do list. Scroll down. Look at the to-do list.
There are projects and then most recent. So let's go here.
Scroll down. There, top one.
Cool. So what's the signing that it had the dates on it? So probably why we didn't pick it up yet. All right. So I'll put that here. Is it possible to copy and paste this not in an image, but in text dates?
No.
Or do you want just the image in there?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that send it there. Cool. One thing I was thinking about just sort of the process of like doing work stuff, as opposed to creating new lists in here each time there's something like this. Maybe we just put like January 2021 or so that we don't have to create a new list and then add to use each list unless there's going to be multiple items under that to do, which this probably there are at the year-end store things that we could add in here. Just thinking about it, like we just did like a month and then everything goes on that month or whatever, just to make it like less steps because just thinking about it from I end up just stating things underneath a month and then on because it's faster to create them. But anyway, just a thought, doesn't add it.
Well,
It makes it faster.
it's less than here, it is assignments.
Maybe if we need to adjust the date, we can, but at least if it has a date, then it will send an email and say, this is overdue. So, that in here. All right, how's the 3-day line?
Okay, hold on, hold on. So, Anthony, I just want to make sure we're clear on who gets lifted. Like that one woman. Was it Diane Jenner? Who,
Yes, not good.
one anniversary, she stopped, the old one started, she's now here. So, she doesn't get it, I don't get it. So, from her, I'd love to know if she's pissed, but she did order those yesterday, so maybe she's.
So I should have come back and said, well,
In regards to those renewing, we don't have anything representative put in place that doesn't allow people to cancel their current and then start off fresh via the promotion price, right? There's nothing that we can do to stop that.
I don't know. If there was, I'd like to know that, because, you know, but if they're going with company, then, you know, I totally get it, but, you know, I was back and forth with, okay, she skirted the situation, there wasn't anything super like that. You know, but out of almost 400 people, she's the only one who's done that so far.
Gotcha.
And, so we created like these kind of encouragement that again, that's, but she doesn't get it super one, this is not good. So, nobody tries to touch it. So you know, if we have it happen again, and as numbers grow, you know, then I guess we would press it, but.
yeah. I mean, you're always gonna ask me if figures out a way to keep this.
Work the system.
I like how you set it up. It's attracting less money instead of never sort of deal. Not as much customers.
Someday, yeah, someday. Okay, we're good on that.
All right, so please go by, anything to talk about there?
No, it's more for anything that I can say. So when I threw that email to the links so that they opted, they want to hand out rather than doing it email boxes. It's limits for 1, 2, and 3, and that's each of them has their own hand out. And the day 3, I put it at 1 again. There are 2 things to it. So it's, I put it down below, scroll down a little bit, that's my moves. And the correct 3-day link for day 3 handout is down there. In case you get anybody saying, like, sure, you know, it's another line, by the way. And she is pretty too,
I know her name because she was the problem out of this. So, yeah.
well, she was, well, long story, but she, of course, was the first person to get it. So, it's since fixed, hopefully, not so many other people will get that, but if they do it.
So you just had to go in here and grab this thing again.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, so that's 3-day live, 90-day purchaser people are in the campaign. They should have already received their initial email and their initial video.
Yeah, got that. Anthony, any other complaints? So we have one person, not satisfied with her purchase. And one reason.
Yes, there was another individual.
So I'm saying that a couple of purchases done this very recently, but then everybody else is waiting to get the Q&A's video. So that should be coming within 3 days, so I think we're not 1 day after that, I'll get the Q&A's video.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was, Sheila, W-O-E-L-F-E-O, or W-O-E-L-F-L-E. was, I would like to, and she's after the screenshot, she says, I would like to know what you will do to make this right question mark. I would appreciate a response to that.
You want to read under and us and say you can be my English editor. And please continue editing further. Congratulations. In exchange for free problems, I would like to find here so I can correct it next printing.
Yeah, and we just want to say, hey, awesome, I appreciate your, going through that with my too. Just remember, trigger going. Thank you. And then I'll be proactive and I'll, create, yeah, or, yeah. So for some reason, show me all the things. Some of those margins.
We printed the wrong version.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
It happens. So
Yeah, yeah.
the mean health is based entirely on that premise. Anyway. Alright, cool. Let's see. Is there a way to send an email just to the ones who haven't received? We don't really have a way to know. The postal service has delivered to them. So I mean, we could go through each one individually and check their tracking numbers and see if they received it or if it's marked as delivered. But even then, we don't know if they received it or not because it can be delivered to a front desk if they haven't picked it up yet. To their turn. So they will get the FAQ by Wednesday because we're not receive that email. So yeah, they should.
Yeah, and if you had a way, you remove that woman from your campaign too.
Yeah. And I'll do the same for the other one that you have responded to as well, the one that the other guidance section is.
Okay. That's great.
Cool. Surely I can back to it. So here is where it is possible for somebody to get tagged into all of the courses anytime they're in between. And anytime they've completed one, but they're moving to the next, they'll go to the main cafe page. On the main cafe page, they will see all of these courses. They'll see all of these courses added with it. So they'll see all of these income instead of in gray. If they, when these are open, if they, instead of clicking on one, they right click and go open to new tab, and then do this for all of them, they'll be in all of them. And there's very little that we can do about that because what triggers what loads on this page is them already being tagged into one. So if they're tagged into one, then it prevents them from getting into another one until they completed it. But if they're on this page and they're in between courses times, then they just open all of these in a new tab, then they're automatically in all those courses. Because they automatically add things to the course when they click on it. And if they're in between courses, they can actually click on any of them. So in theory, if they open a new tab, they could be in multiple courses at the same time.
Wow.
Could I also do the same thing? So say I'm in weight loss, could I also click on the drop down on the top right corner of the page? That gives me those options as well. Could they do it that way too or not?
That's really,
I think that's just, because that's what I was thinking before, I'm sure is she went that route. But I think that's.
that is a really good question. The only, obviously we have to make that a conditional thing. I didn't even ever consider that. That's a really good finding. Okay. wrote the notes that we didn't actually build that part, and that was in here when, well, yeah, that was in here when Carl handed it over, but that's really interesting. As a just situational thing. Very smart.
That's what I was thinking, that was what she did.
Think, cafe, courses, what's called cafe courses, and additional things, tagging. It's not, because I don't remember building that, so yeah, that's probably what's happening. Call. Alright. Cool. Okay, so without the result of that, then there isn't really anything to be done if they're in each meeting and they click on. He said multiple tabs if you go in there. So the likelihood of that, I don't know how many people in your audience are right clicking, you can do tab and then coming back and another new tab. But then on the other side, once they complete a course, it will reset everything. They'll have to do that again in order to be in the whole courses. Also, it's blowing up their email that they haven't completed all these steps, so I don't know why they would want to do that, but that is a possibility.
Yeah, it was, yeah, so. It's what Shirley was doing like in Cypher, when she was private coaching it, and then she would say, I'm so confused, I keep getting in this program, I keep getting this, and I keep getting this. Stop.
You're already in, you don't have to get it again. I'll take care of the rest. Alright, so parking, review high priority. I didn't see this video, what was this video? Video available.
Oh,
It's a video.
yeah, so that was random, but I think about it, so I just went through, but somebody that canceled was still going to renew in the infusion song. So my numbers for, if I'm using accounting at all, right, infusion song are going to be off. So you just have to make sure that you're, covering all the bases in there, and so that's what that video was, it's in YouTube, and I have it private, because I don't know that one, it's by unlisted people. So, do you know what that is? Because you've got to click on like update building information, and go to there and make sure that is no, as far as auto doing the
It's a test code, then a subscription, selecting active, and then selecting other, and then save it.
Yeah. So, I just want to make sure that that happens, because otherwise, every time somebody still reviews, even if we're not collecting money, it's going to come from the R.
Okay, gotcha.
Alright, that's it.
Cool.
And I, have a, so, just thinking of this video I'm gonna create for that, really tracker journal. I think if I had them on for the past, and I send it, we'll just start getting more awareness of that error, it'll be better. So what's the best way to do that? Just do a broadcast, Jonathan?
Yep.
Okay,
Planner, tag is probably just purchase.
Okay.
Tag it in there.
but here's the problem. So then somebody purchases it tomorrow, won't get that, how would we get to them?
Once you send it, send me a message, and I will go in and grab the broadcast and stick it in an after purchase email, or we can put it in the initial, we can just put it in that ask me, whatever you put into that broadcast, or you can go in here too and add it if you want.
Okay.
After you broadcast it out.
Okay, probably best, that is the, how to use this.
Okay.
We added it in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Hey, girl.
Nothing.
Hey, guys. Yes. Hey, first of all, I'll just.
Test.
Hello.
Hi, Deborah. How are you?
Hey, good. Give me 1 second.
No problem. I'm just testing out the links here. I just want to make sure I've never used Zencaster before, so
You
I want
sound phenomenal.
How are you?
to. Good. How are you, girl?
Good. Oh my gosh, you look fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Life is agreeing with you.
Sometimes I can menstruate properly. It's like everything. Music too.
And that is a comeback line not everybody's using. Okay.
Like you can menstruate like a boss. Yeah, life agrees with you. Yep.
Okay, so some of my audience are definitely in perimenopause, others are in postmenopause. So to some of what you apply, talk to them too.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So we can talk about perimenopause, and we can also talk about how things change. Like if we're talking about fitness and training, we can talk about some of the things to consider in perimenopause as a preparatory strategy for moving into and beyond menopause, and what that might look like. Yes. The short answer is yes.
So good. So awesome. Okay. Fantastic. So I have to admit, I'm coming right off of like something at 10 and something at 11 and something at 12.
Okay.
Woo.
Do you need a few minutes? I just logged in early. Like I know we're set to go